So Flavia, just while we're waiting, this is actually my first interaction with Seneca. So I've been being sent lots of emails by Richard Broad, I think his name is, but I've not really had time to check in. And so it could be useful just to get an overview of what Seneca even is, because I'm just looking through some emails now.
Yeah, we'll do it.
That's part of your main session.
No worries. So I'm told that everybody who we invited for these sections, they are part of a school who already has premium access to Seneca.
Okay.
So even though you personally are not using, your school as a whole already has not only the free access, but also the premium access.
Yeah.
So you can at any time start using it already for you, but I will. So I'm going to explain some of the CogSci principles behind it, and then I'll go and explain the Seneca platform itself. It's actually nicer that if it's only the three of us now, Melissa's here, then I can spend more time on that if you're interested, instead of having to go through it and focus on other things.
That'd be great.
So I'm gonna get started, so I don't take up even more time from you if you already have other things booked after that. Let's just see if Melissa can hear me. Can you hear me, Melissa? This is just us, then we can. Oh, now there are people coming. Okay. Well, I'll get started then. So I'm gonna share my screen to give you a quick presentation, well, not so quick, maybe 20 minutes presentation on cognitive sciences and some of the principles that we use on Seneca to help students learn better. Okay, so I'm gonna share my presentation. I have to say that this is being broadcast live on YouTube. So if you prefer to switch your camera off, you're free to. If you don't mind, leave it on. But if you don't want to be on YouTube, just switch your camera off. All right, so I'll get started. All right, can everybody see my screen here?
Yep.
Yeah, great, brilliant. Cool. So I'm going to talk to you about how we can help students use effective learning strategies. I'm going to explain how those strategies work, what they are, where they come from, and then how we can help students use them. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Seneca, about how we embed all of those different CogSci principles into our methodology to really help students learn, as we say, 2 times better. These are my contacts, so you can follow me on Twitter if you want, and also follow Seneca as well. We give a lot of updates and news and just interesting articles on Twitter every now and then. It's the easiest way for you to get in touch with us later. Just send us a DM if you need any explanation or any question about Seneca. So just so you know who I am, my name is Flavia, and I was a science teacher in Brazil, so I'm from Brazil. But I've been in London since 2014 because I moved here to do my PhD in neuroscience. So I went to UCL and did my PhD there, studying about how the brain works, how memory works, how learning works. And then as soon as I finished, I joined Seneca. So I've been with Seneca since 2017, even though we only launched Seneca in 2018. So I've been here since literally the beginning, since we had nobody using it because it didn't even exist. And now when we have 5 million people already using Seneca, it's basically everybody in the UK has heard of Seneca or is already using Seneca one way or another. And you're all here, so I've mentioned that with Anna already, but you are all here because your school has premium access to Seneca. Okay, so everything that I'll show you about Seneca, you can access because your school is already part of our premium schools. Okay, so there's somebody, at least one person in your school who already really, really likes Seneca and who got the premium access to everybody in your school. And everybody, I mean teachers and students as well. Okay, so just before I forget, I have everybody's email, so I will be sending you some articles about cognitive science if you want to read more about it. And you can also receive a CPD certificate for having attended this talk. I just needed to send me an email with your full name, and I'll make sure to get the certificate sent to you. Okay, so this is my email, flavia@seneca.io. Just send me an email and I will make sure to send you CPD certificate for this. Okay, so let's just get started. Which of those do your students use? Let me unmute some of you if you want, because we can try to make this more interactive. There are not too many of us here. So if you can tell me which of those your students usually use when they are preparing for an exam or a quiz or something. So which of those will be their number one technique?
Probably highlight the textbook, read through the notes.
Yeah.
And we're trying to encourage them to make infographics, so use visual elements.
Yeah. Great. So reading notes and highlighting textbooks and a little bit of mind maps and infographics. Perfect. Yeah. So not so much in testing themselves or following a timetable. You'll see that these are the most common answers from every teacher, but those are the ones that they should be doing, really. So those are the effective learning strategies, but I'll get to that later. I just like to start with that so that teachers really understand that students don't do what they are supposed to be doing and how we can help them do that, which is the title of this presentation. Okay, so what are effective learning strategies? Those are the strategies that, according to research, work more than others. So they are not based on guessing, they are not based on what I think is best, they are based on actual scientific proof and scientific studies and replication and validation. There are 4 of them, there are several of them, but there are 4 of them that I consider the most important ones, and they are the ones that we chose to use on our Seneca methodology. So the first one is retrieval practice, and that's the idea that if you actively bring information back to mind, you're gonna learn that information more than if you're just passively reading that information over and over again. So the idea is that instead of giving students a video or text that they just sit and read, they answer questions. That's the main part of it. So they have to come up with the answers. They have to retrieve, they have to think about what they've learned before to be able to answer a problem. And that creates new connections between different pieces of information in their head and makes that information stronger, more consolidated in their head. So they learn that better because they're creating connections, they're thinking about it instead of just passively trying to absorb everything that you give them. So, flashcards are a very simple example of that, but only if you read the card, or your students read the card and really try to answer the question before flipping the card. Obviously past papers, because they're not just practicing it, explaining how and why. So this is more about elaboration. So instead of just reading and accepting everything that's there, they have to think, why is this the right explanation? How does that happen exactly? Who came up with that? What was the process behind this theory? So really elaborate on that knowledge and study group in a way that one student asks something to the other ones and the other one answers and asks something back. So the idea here is that every time that you retrieve something, you reconsolidate the information in your head and you get a stronger memory for that piece of information. The only thing to be careful with here is misconceptions. So retrieval practice does not differentiate right from wrong. So whatever you are retrieving and bringing back to mind will be your stronger memory. So if you are retrieving misinformation, misconceptions, something wrong that you learned wrong initially, that will be the strong information in your head. So it's important for us as teachers to always check what students are doing, what kind of answers they are giving, so that we make sure they are not retrieving the wrong information. If you have any questions at any time, just go for it, okay? You don't have to wait until the end. So I like to think about retrieval practice as a maze. So basically, the entrance of the maze is something that your students need to know. And then the exit is the correct answer to that something or the correct explanation. If they're always reading their books, same again, and highlighting the same paragraphs over and over again, there's only one path that leads them from the entrance to the exit. But if they are using retrieval practice, creating connections, thinking about the content, asking people other things, answering questions from other people, they create several new paths, so it's easier to go from one to the other. Okay, so that's the analogy for retrieval practice. And there are other two very good techniques, which they are two, but they go together, so it's like 2 and 1. It's spacing and interleaving. So that's the idea that if you spread out your study sessions and switch between topics, you learn everything better than if you do just one big block of something followed by one big block of something else. So it's basically like going to the gym. So imagine that you are training for a marathon for next June. So you have 12 months now. You are not going to train only arms for 4 months and then, okay, I'm good with arms. And then you train only legs for 4 months. And then you train only cardio for 4 months. You're going to do a little bit of everything all the time, right? So one, because you cannot forget, right? So if you do a lot of arms now and you don't do it for the next 8 months, your arms are going to go back to the way they were before. So you always have to revisit what you were doing before to make sure that it doesn't go down again, which is exactly what Ebbinghaus found out. Well, not exactly, but what Ebbinghaus found out in 1885 when he tested himself. So he learned a series of words and then he measured how long it would take for him to forget those words. And the first time that he learned it, he forgot 20% after 1 day. Then he revisited that, he learned them again, and it took him 2 days to forget. And then he learned them again, and it took him 4 days, 3 days to forget. So the idea is that every time that you revisit past information, that gets reconsolidated in your head and gets stronger and stronger to a point where you don't really forget it anymore. Okay, so even if a student gets 100% correct in a quiz, if they never look at the content again, they are just going to forget. Okay, so that's the idea of spacing and interleaving, is that you always go back and revisit past information instead of doing a big block of something and then consider that done and then moving on to something else and never going back to that first block again. And then the interleaving is that in between different things, you do something else. So in between studying biology, you go and study a little bit of English. In between English and English, you go and study physics. So it's like the gym again. Between doing different sections on your arms, you do some legs as well. The only thing here is really the curriculum, which is more like a big question. It's there. Sometimes there's just so much to cover that we don't have time to revisit past information. So there are some teachers that say that only 20% of the lesson should be new content and 80% should be recover of previous content. That would be great. Don't know if always possible because of how much content we have to go through, but it's definitely something that we should be aiming at. So always revisiting past information in the class. There are several ways that you can do that pretty easy, that if we have time, I can show you some of them in the end. And then dual coding is the last one, which is the idea of combining words with visual elements. So Anne already said that, infographics are one example. I don't even have them here, but they're one example. Diagrams, mind maps, timelines, anything that you do combining words with visual elements is dual coding, and it makes it easier for the brain to process information. The only thing to be careful is the overload. So if there's too many images, too many words, everything together, and they're not really related, then it's two separate pieces of information that your students trying to process at the same time instead of one big combined one. So I'm going to send you these later, but there are two very, very good articles about effective learning strategies. This is one of them. It's always also on Google. If you look for the title, you'll find the PDF and you can download it. And then this is the other one, but I'll send them. I can send you the PDFs later. And then there are several blogs that I would recommend you checking out because they are from teachers. So they're written by teachers or by education researchers about effective learning strategies and what they are and how they can use them, and any research that has been behind those strategies. So I recommend doing all of those. And on Twitter as well, there is a hashtag that is for science teachers, it's called SciSci. It's a very good hashtag, but you can also find a lot of very good people sharing different CogSci tips on Twitter as well. Okay, so does anybody have any questions before I go on, or any comments?
Nope.
So next step is, so we have all the information, right? So we know the effective learning strategies, but then the question is, do students use them? So now we can go back to the answer to that question that I gave on the first time. Most teachers will say that students highlight textbook, read notes, and write summaries. The correct answers, not the correct, but what they should be doing is following timetable because of spacing and interleaving, using visual elements because of dual coding, and testing themselves because of retrieval practice. So if your students are doing those three mostly, you're not alone, they are not alone. We ran a survey when we started Seneca, and only 24% of students were using one of the 4 good strategies. And there are several other papers that I'm also going to send you later that show the same thing. So this one shows that only 11% of students use retrieval practice. This one showed that only 16% use them. Testing to enhance learning, which is retrieval practice. And this one, out of the students who knew what to do, so the ones that already knew about the effective learning strategies, 34%, so a third of them were not using them. So even though they knew what they had to do, they were still going for highlighting and writing summaries. So why is that? So why is it that so very few students use effective learning strategies despite the massive sea of information that we have about them? There are 3 main reasons. The first one is that they don't know about them. That's like the basic reason, but it's definitely an important reason. So one of those papers that I mentioned before, his conclusions, or their conclusions, are that students are not aware that retrieval practice enhances learning, and the educator should inform students about it and relate that to research. So just like we teach them about photosynthesis, we teach them about the First World War, we teach them about, I don't know, how the rainbow works, we have to teach them about this. We have to tell them, this is how you study, this is the research behind it, this is why you work, this is how the brain works, so that they really understand what they have to do. They can't really come up with their own effective strategies, right? They will just repeat what they've been doing forever, which is highlighting, reading, and writing summaries. So it's up to us to teach them what's the best way to study. And then this is a quote that I find very interesting from one of the learning scientists, which is one of the blogs that I mentioned before. So she said that by the time students arrive at college, they should be expert learners, as most will have been in school for 13 years. However, college students are largely unable to select effective learning scenarios and apply those to their independent learning. She's American, so college here means university. But the idea is that if you're hiring somebody to fix your fridge, and that person says, I have 13 years of experience fixing fridges, you expect that person to know the effective way to fix a fridge, right? To know the right parts and how they go in the fridge. But students, they've been students for 13 years and they still don't know how to study. So there's something wrong there, where they just do the same thing for 13 years and they just never learn how to do them right.
No, go for it. I'm just doing this Seneca training.
And the second reason is something called illusion of competence. So that's how students feel like they learn more by doing the ineffective learning ways. So by reading text, it gives them the impression that they're learning more than by being tested. And that's because when you're reading something, you have the answers together with the questions. So you just go like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, that's easy. That's easy. But that's because you can see the answer. So that's why it's easy. When you're being tested, so when you're doing retrieval practice, that's when you realize that you actually don't understand that content very well. So when you're learning with passive methods, somebody just giving you information, it makes you overestimate how much you understand of that. And when you're testing yourselves, that's when you correctly estimate. So it gives students the impression that they learn more by reading and highlighting than by testing themselves. So it's just an illusion, which is this as well. It's an illusion as well. And the third reason is the effective strategies are time consuming. So just practically speaking, it's a lot easier to just, lie in bed the day before the exam and read everything rather than having a calendar, following a study routine and revisiting past information and putting the time slots together and testing themselves and downloading past papers. That's just a lot easier to do one thing than the other. So actually skipped. Sorry, let me go back here. I put those slides in a different order. But basically, so there are three things that we can do to help students learn better. The first one, like I said, is to explain to them what those strategies are. There are several, even like good resources on the internet that you can look for to share with your students, also obviously assemblies, and explain to parents as well. Tell them about brain and memory and use those videos. We have I think we have 11 now or even more short courses for teachers on effective learning strategies and cognitive science in general. So you can go on the Seneca platform. It's all there for you to do for free. And one of them is written by Patrice Bain, who is a researcher, and she wrote a book about how to talk to parents about effective learning strategies. That's a really good course as well that you can do. And if you teach parents how to do that, they can help the students to do them as well. The second thing that we can do is to use effective strategies in the classroom. So basically you lead by example. So you make sure that your classroom is effective, is using the research-based strategies so that students then can do the same thing at home. So there are several different techniques that you can use, and you can always make sure to revisit past content so they understand the importance of revisiting past content as well. So these are just a few examples. So this is by Blake Harvard. It's called Color-Coded Retrieval Practice. Basically, you ask students to answer a question without checking any books, without checking any notes. Just write everything that you can remember about the content, and then they highlight that in pink. And then they go and check the books and complement the answer and highlight that in yellow. And then a week later, they do the exact same thing and compare how much pink and how much yellow they have. So the idea here is that you are using retrieval practice because they have to answer questions. You are using spacing because you are revisiting past information. And there's even a bit of metacognition here because it helps students see how much they are progressing. So that's a really easy one. You only need paper, highlighters, and pen. So it's a really easy thing for students to do. And it really kind of uses all the good techniques already in one technique. This is by Kate Jones, so it's a retrieval practice challenge grid. What she does is a competition with her students, and then depending on the color of the question, they get different points. So blue questions are some things that were taught last lesson. The red questions are things that were taught 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and further back. So you get more points. The further you can remember something, you get more points. So again, this is retrieval practice mixed with spacing and with interleaving because you are revisiting past topics and you are not talking to them only about one specific content and then another one. You're talking to them about a lot of them together, mixing the order. And then this is Adam Boxer, who is a teacher in London. And he created the Retrieval Roulette, which is an Excel file that comes with a formula. And basically you add thousands of questions. He actually has a lot of templates with the questions are already ready for that. But you can add your own questions. And then with the formula, you can ask the Excel to give you questions that relate to last week or to the week before or to the previous week. And then you will randomly select questions for you to ask your students. So at the beginning of each of his lessons, he gives 5 to 10 of these questions who are randomly selected, which means that they are doing retrieval practice, spacing, and interleaving all in one, and it's really easy to do. And the last thing that you can do, and that's what I wanted to talk to you more about in the end here, is, I have to find my slides again. No, sorry. Nope. Yep, is Seneca. So why did we create Seneca? We created Seneca because we wanted to make sure that students were learning the best way possible. And we also want to make sure that teachers can follow their students and engage more with them and really understand what's going on with students during learning and not only after learning has happened. Okay, so I will talk to you a little bit about Seneca, but before that, does anybody have any questions about any of the cognitive science principles that I talked about before?
There was just something we found that works well, which is number coding as well. So when they've got to I'm a geography teacher, and it's quite a knowledge-heavy subject. And so for example, if they've got to know that there are 4 different types of transportation in a river, and so that it kind of works that in the exam they're like, okay, there's 4 different types of this, or there's 7 types of, and we've just found that's effective. I just thought I'd mention that.
No, that's great. I think
I'm
that's
just thinking how it could be applied to other subjects. So, potentially there are, 3 small bones in the ear, or there are, and it's,
yeah, that's great. So there is another technique that's called chunking, which is basically, it's what you said. So you take one big piece of content and then you divide them into separate small ones. So that's easier to remember. So that's exactly what you're doing. So instead of just having them understanding a whole text about all the different ways that a river can move, whatever, then you separate. These are 4, and you give them 4 smaller chunks to understand. Yeah, so that's perfect. That's a good one. Yeah. Cool. So let me give you an example of one subject on Seneca and how we apply those techniques to our methodology. So I'm going to show you what the student view is. So what students see when they are doing an assignment or when they are studying independently. And then I'll show you the teacher platform. So I'll show you what the tools that we have for teachers are as well. And just as a reminder, all of you who are here today, you already have premium access to Seneca. So you can use literally everything that is here, things that I will show, things that I'm not going to show. You have access to everything. And there is definitely at least one person in your school who knows about Seneca pretty much, very well, because that person arranged for everybody to have premium access. So find out who that person is. That will be my advice after we finish here. Find out who that person is. They probably are head of department somewhere, and talk to them and say, hi, I'm interested in using Seneca as well. Can you just let me know how you're using or what kind of programs you already have in the school? Because it's a lot easier to get started if somebody else is already using. It's actually very likely that your students are already using Seneca with a different subject, so they probably already know everything about how it works. So that's a good thing to do as well. But let me just tell you a little bit more here. So this is the student view, right? So you can see we have a lot of things here. We have all the way from primary all the way to A level. We even have some university entrance examinations, and here are the teacher CPD that I mentioned. So all of those are courses for teachers that you can do. You get a certificate in the end, and then you get to learn a bit more about, there's cognitive science, there's assessments, there's retrieval practice, literacy, metacognition. It's really interesting here. This is the one about parents that I mentioned before. Assessment, well-being, like things for everybody here. But let's not talk about that now. Let's talk about the actual student methodology. So let's go for geography, because that's an subject. So if I select geography here, you can see we have a lot, and it's all exam board specific, written by senior teachers and senior examiners. So for example, for geography, we will have geography A-level AQA, we will have geography at Excel, geography IGCSE, and etc. So it's all divided by exam boards. And because your school is a premium school, you have access not only to the 35 free courses, but also to the other 52 free courses as well. So there's only for geography teachers, there are already 87 options here that you can choose from. And the same for all the other subjects as well. So if we choose one of them, so let's just go for the AQA because it's the first one here, but the methodology is the same for all of them. So how does that work? So students have all the content here, right? It's all divided very well according to the specifications, in this case, the AQA exam, right? And here is where they see the assignments. So when you set an assignment to your students, that's where they will see the assignments. This one is a premium feature, so your students can use that. It's a way for them to answer wrong answers only, so they can go back and revisit past topics, but focusing on what they learned, what they didn't learn the first time, so they can improve on that. And this is also a premium feature, so your students have access to it, which is smart learning mode. So this is an algorithm that we have that uses artificial intelligence to basically take retrieval practice, spacing and interleaving into account and recommend to students what to study next. So this is individual. So I'm seeing this as a recommendation. My colleague will be seeing something else. My other colleague will be seeing something else. So this is a personalized study recommendation that we give to your students based on how well and how much and when they studied content in the past. Okay. So let's just go through one of them. I don't know. I told you before I was a biology teacher, so I'm just gonna choose anything. I'm not the best on geography, but let's just do it. So how does our methodology work? We use active methodologies. So like I said, we don't give students a video to watch. We don't give them a 20-page text to read, because we want them to practice retrieving information, bringing things back to mind, using retrieval practice, using spacing and interleaving, using dual coding, all of those things that I talked to before. So it starts with slides. So we have those slides that bring diagrams or just pictures to help, because this is dual coding, right? So we're connecting the written information with the visual information. And then when they hit continue, they will have questions. So they ask like typing questions, multiple choice questions, diagram questions, find the wrong word questions, there are list questions, there are fill in the blank questions, multiple types of questions the students will have to answer. And they can go back here to look for the correct answer, but it's all corrected immediately. So it's always self-grading and self-marking, automated marking. So not only students immediately know if they get something wrong or right and what would be the right answer, you will also know. So Seneca marks everything automatically, immediately, and sends you a full report about your students. So the idea is that it's more like formative assessment or diagnostic assessment. So it's a way for you to keep track on your students' progress, to make sure to adapt and to adjust your teaching according to what your students are following or not following. So instead of waiting until your monthly quiz, for example, and then realizing that Beth and Michael are not really following the class, when you use Seneca, you get this immediate feedback that lets you know how well your students are doing on each topic, how much they understood, how much they did not understood. And then you can fix and adjust your route before you get to the end and then having to go back all the way before. Okay, so that's the main idea here. And also everything is already ready for you to do, so you don't have to create the assignments yourself. You can just pick and use. So if you go on continue, sometimes there will be a video, a quick one, so like a 3-minute video in this case. Then you have a bit more of content, and then you're gonna have more questions. And what's happening here in the background is that we have an algorithm that keeps track of each student's answers and selects a different question for each of them. So we have a database of questions that is bigger than what you see here, but that it will be individual for each student. So as they answer, our algorithm realizes what they are learning, what they have already mastered, what they are confused about, and then selects new questions for each student. So each student ends up with your individual, personalized, differentiated learning path, which is also proven to optimize learning. So it really helps because, well, one is fun, right? It's motivating for them to know that it's not always the same thing. They're not always seeing the same questions over and over again. Each time they will see something different, and it's individual. So it really does optimize to each student's progress. Okay, I just want to show you what happens in the end. So again, I am not a geography teacher, so I'm just gonna guess, but yeah, I forgot the other ones already, but there you go. You see some of the questions will be shown again because I didn't master them the first time. So I'll get a second chance because it's not about punishing students for not knowing something. It's about helping them learn what they haven't learned yet. Right, so in the end here, students get an immediate feedback of their score, and they always have the option to try again. So they can continue to the next assignment or they can try again to improve, which is also some part of spacing and interleaving. So you're revisiting past information. So if I try again here, I have 3 different ways that I can re-study that information. Adaptive way is the free version. So basically, you're just going to go back to the whole lesson and then see adapted questions depending on how you answer the first time. And those 2 here are premium modes, which your students already have access. So your students can really do anything here. Everything is available for them. This one, they will only revisit what they got wrong the first time. And this one is notes only. So they will only see the text part of the lesson. So they have access, they can do the adaptive one, which is basically letting our algorithm select the questions for them. They can go straight to the ones that they got wrong the first time. Or if they just want a quick review, just read the notes again, then they can as well here. Does anybody have any questions about how that methodology works?
No, I think it seemed useful.
Great, cool. We did do, I didn't have that on my slides, but we did do a randomized control trial when we started in 2018 with more than 1,000 students from 8 different schools in England. And we showed that students that used the Seneca methodology go up to 105% more learning. So they get 105% better grades than the students who don't use the Seneca methodology, exactly because it is a methodology that's all based on effective learning strategies, on cognitive science, and on this differentiation of each student following their own learning path and having immediate feedback. Okay, so just a few more things on the student platform. So I showed you geography, but it's literally the same type of methodology for all the other ones. For maths and sciences, we also have a different type of question, which is the actual calculation. So we help students to do the math, literally, and so on. So again, because you have premium access, you can do, your students have access to any of those types here that other students might not have. Okay. Here, if they click on classes and assignments, mine, there's a little bit of Portuguese here because I'm also the responsible for Seneca Brazil. So I have a mix of English and Portuguese courses here. So don't mind that. When your students click on classes and assignments, that's where they see the assignments that they have to do. So they'll get a list of all the assignments. Again, mine is in Portuguese, but it's the same thing. So basically, they go here and they will see the assignment for biology, the assignment for chemistry, the assignment for arts, and then they always have the option. So probably your students are already using Seneca with another subject, so they already have this. What's gonna happen when you start using is that your assignment will be listed here as well, together with the other ones. So they just can access everything at once. And like I said before, they always have the option to retry, to try to revisit the information and learn more. Even if something is already passed, they still have the option to retry it and try to improve their grades here as well. And all of that is analyzed and saved and shown to you on your report, which I'm going to show you now. So in terms of teacher tools, how does Seneca work? Basically, you have your classes, so you can have as many classes as you want. And the idea is that when you create a class, let's call it year 9, let's do biology or sciences now, for example. Then you will add your course. We have a tutorial for this, so I'm just going to go quickly just to show you the features instead of the actual tutorial. But let's say you select your, let's do for that one, biology course. And then all you have to do is add an assignment. So when you add an assignment, it will give you the list of everything that we have following, in this case, the Edexcel A-level, Edexcel A exam specs. So it's all here. You can preview them if you want. So you get to see a preview of what kind of questions and what kind of content we have within the assignment, keeping in mind that the actual assignment will be personalized and individual for each student. Okay, and then literally all you have to do is click on the ones that you want. It tells you how long it's going to take for students to complete them. Hit assign, give a name, start date, due date, so from when to when your students can answer that, create, and that's it. So here you have several options, so you can send them a link. So if your school is using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams or just email, you can send this link to them. When they click on the link, they will be taken straight to your assignment specifically. Or if your students are already using Seneca, the moment that you created assignment is already going to show the assignment to them back on their classes and assignments page. So you can use the link, or you can just tell them that there's something else, and then they go there together with the other assignments that will be yours. And then as soon as students complete the assignment, you'll see the grades. So let me show you an example of grades or how it looks like. So let's say here I already have 11 students and I'm using them, Seneca with them. If I click on assignments, then I'll get to see their grades here. So this one is empty, but basically you get to see all your students' names here and the grades. You get to see most recent score, first attempt, best score, average score, worst score, number of attempts, study time. So everything is here ready for you to just use that information. Okay, so you don't have to mark anything. You just go here and you get all the information from your students. So you get to see how each of them is learning or following your explanation per topic and per student. Somebody raised their hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rabia. I just wanted to ask, firstly, when when you said the assignment and you said, oh, you can randomly pick, would there be a way to filter out? Because I, as a teacher, the only thing I struggled with, yes, we do get all these built-in resources, but then once you have set one thing, and it does not tell you that whether that has already been set or not, especially if you're picking questions from different modules. And it's very similar to Isaac Computer Science or Quizlet. So and this grading system is very similar to Microsoft. So what could be your selling point of why should we move to Seneca? I think I have put lots of questions in one go.
Yeah,
Sorry
there
about
were lots
that.
of questions in there. Right. So selling points. One is based on science, like it's literally based on cognitive science and how the brain works. And everything that we do has corroboration and validation and replication from scientific methods, and it really works. It's proven to work. Two, I usually say that it's free, but in your case, you already have premium access, so you have even more than that. And three, you get all those detailed information about your students that you also have in other platforms. But here you get the immediate correction and the immediate way to see how your students are doing. And also the gamification. So it's all really fun for students, all very adaptive. So each student has their own learning path. So the platform itself differentiates and helps your students to optimize their learning according to how each of them is progressing on each topic.
And
Yeah,
and,
go ahead.
and how would it link to the existing systems? Like, for example, would like would be able to link it with the Microsoft assignments, and it's
Yes.
just by about sharing a link, that's it?
So you can, so there are different things. So with Microsoft, you can log into Seneca using a Microsoft account and your students as well. So you wouldn't need a new login here. So we have this single sign-on between Seneca and Microsoft, and also Google and other platforms to the link. So when you want to send a link to your students, it gives you the option to send it directly via Microsoft Teams. And you can also open these within a tab on Microsoft Teams. So, when you have your Teams big window, you can have all those tabs, and then Seneca can be a tab. So you can use Seneca within the big Teams environment.
And would that the reporting system, would that sync with the Microsoft, or do you have to create separate reports from Seneca only?
Yeah, for now, yes. So for now, the reports will stay here. They will not be
Okay.
transferred directly, but we are working on that. So that is on our list of things to look at. And some of my colleagues from the software team are already looking into that. I can't give you a date, but it's definitely something that we are working on.
Okay.
to
And one
allow.
last thing,
Yeah,
do you have anything available for the computer science, like A-level computer science content? Or
we do. I can tell you exactly what kind of things we have because I don't know it on top of my head, but let's go for computer science. So let's see. So is there a specific exam board that you follow?
yeah, maybe the OCRE level?
Yeah, so we have OCRE level here. Yeah, I think for A level, that's currently the only one. But yeah, so if that's the one that you follow, then yeah, we have it here.
Okay. And do you guys follow the complete course, or who are the writers behind? Like, is it because there are so many different subjects, and I believe obviously you guys would have had like teachers who have written this content, or is it from the exam board?
All the content that we have is proper, like our content. So we don't take content from other sources and put it here. Every content that we have was written by us. And by us, I don't mean myself. Purely, obviously, we hire teachers and examiners to write the content for us. So for everyone that you have here, there will be a list of people who worked on that content. So in this case, it was written by 5 different teachers here. So, but this is written
Okay.
by
I
us.
recognize one name, William
Okay.
Lau.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's good.
So you
Good to
already
know.
know that you can trust it. Yeah, so we work with like really good people. We make sure to get like very good teachers with a lot of experience and who are particularly experienced on their exam boards. This one we only have OCR, but for other subjects we have several exam boards. So we work with teachers who are very familiar with that specific specifications.
And is it like a free platform where teachers can create stuff and share, or is it just what you have created others can use?
So you cannot add your own content. That's what you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
So you cannot add your own content. You can just pick from whatever we already have here, because what we have here, we can make sure that it follows the cognitive scientific methodology
yeah,
that we
no,
want to
that's actually
follow.
good, because
Yeah.
otherwise you end up with so much garbage that filtering it out is a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So basically you just click here, click on add assignment, choose one, and yeah, just choose what you want
Okay.
and send. Yeah. And the way you know that it's being sent, because that was the very first question. So after I assign, let's give it any name here. After I assign it, so here's the Microsoft Teams link. If you click on assignments, then you have the list of everything that you have assigned. And then for each of them, you will see your students' report. So you'll see how many of them have completed, how many of them have completed but late, how many of them have not completed. You see the average for the class, and then the grades for each student listed here. You can do any of them. You can export to a table, and you just go next, and then you see the next assignment and the next assignment. And there's something that's pretty cool here, which is our smart reassign. So we got some funding from Nesta, which is an organization that invests in educational technology, and we created the smart reassign mode. So if you take an assignment that's already passed, so this one was due on the 28th of April, right? So if I click here, then I have the option to smart reassign. And by that, I select one criterion here, and then Seneca sends this assignment again only to those students who fit the criterion. So let's say that both of us have done this, but I got 44% on topic A and you got 49% on topic B. You will see only B to do again, and I will see only A. So it's another way to differentiate and make sure that your students are revisiting past information, so doing the spacing, but focusing on the things that they need to improve instead of having them doing a lot of things that they don't really need to do.
Right. So, yeah. And how would you classify it? Is it would you say it's a learning tool? Is it a assessment tool, or is it a revision tool?
Well, I guess depending on the teacher, they will tell you different things. I consider it a learning tool, but you can use it as an assessment tool. So it depends on the assessment. So learning, formative assessment, and diagnostic assessment are my favorite ones. So, because the whole thing about formative assessment is that you are assessing your students to be able to rethink your practice instead of just giving them a grade. But we added this option here, so most recent attempt, this one, first attempt, because there are some teachers who want to use it as a traditional assessment. So then it basically ignores everything that students do as a second trial, so it doesn't give them a chance to relearn it. So it really is like an exam. You can do that, it's up to you. But that's why we give them all these options, right? So you can do whatever you want here. You can use whatever information you want. But I consider it more of a learning tool rather than a traditional assessment, but it can be used like that as well.
And are we able to mix and match questions from various assignments?
No.
So it's like fixed assignments and that's it. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. So
it's more sort of, as you said, it's more sort of a learning tool rather than a
click too many things at the same time. Sorry, trying to move too fast. But yeah, so basically you choose the assignment, and then within the assignment, Seneca itself will determine the questions that each student will see. But if you click on, let's say, biology at Excel here, you cannot say, I want 3 questions from this one and 3 questions from that one.
Okay.
One more thing that is a new thing actually, but you have it because you're already a premium school, so I think it's worth mentioning, but it's pretty new, is this option here, progress. So if you click on progress, you can generate, so it's beta, so it's really new, but you can get a whole report from your classes. So it's just like one big report that you can have for all of your classes, all of the subjects that you teach, all of the assignments that you have set. So you have this like very big, nice overview of everything that has happened instead of having to go through assignment by assignment like I showed you before. So you can choose the period here, and then you generate a report. And it will be a Excel or CSV table that you can download, and you have all the information about your class in a very easy, very informative way. Yeah, that's pretty new, but you already have access to school.
Yep. So school have to pay how much for this? Like for the premium account, how much does it charge?
I will have to check the exact amount, but your school's already paid for it.
Okay, and is it being used a lot in various departments?
Yeah, so we're doing these particular seminars only for teachers who are part of premium schools.
Okay.
So if you have been invited to this, your school already has premium. So I
Okay.
don't
Because
know.
I
I don't
haven't
have.
heard
Yeah.
much. I
Yeah,
haven't heard much. And
maybe
the second is
but that's actually why we're doing this, because some of the premium schools, it's like the biology department is using it a lot, but then the
yeah.
people in the
Yeah.
Spanish classes haven't heard of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's probably some other subject in your school
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
already using it a lot and liked it so
Yeah.
much that they purchased premium for everybody. I
Okay.
don't have the information here on who that person is, but if you ask around, you will probably find out. It's possible that your students are already using with another
Students are
subject.
using it, I know, and I have an
Yeah.
account because I did sign up, but
Okay.
I wasn't aware that we have a premium, so
Yeah.
I can figure that out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So yeah, I think my suggestion would be to find out even from your students who's the teacher who's using it the most, and then just have a chat with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks a
No,
lot. I've asked you so many questions. Sorry about
no, but
that.
that's why we're here. It's no problem at all. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'm good, thank you. But
Yeah.
it was interesting. I've actually been browsing some of the relevant kind of areas for my subject, so that was useful.
Okay, great. Happy to hear that. You have my contact, so it's flavia@seneca.io. Just feel free. Well, do let me know your full name by email so I can send you the certificate. And just get in touch with anything that you need, any questions, any extra things that you think about after today's talk, and I'll make sure to get you back. We might be able even to find out who the top department is in your school, so you can get in touch with them and get some tips from them.
Great. Okay, thanks very much.
All right. Yeah, you're very welcome. Hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed it.